Some things get better with age, like wine or Stanley Tucci. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife, and today, as part of 7 on Sunday, I'm going to take you through some of my favourite book sequels. It did take me a while to get this list together, mainly because I haven't read a whole lot of sequels. I have got a whole lot of series on my shelves, either on my physical shelf or on my Kindle, but it feels like I haven't actually read a lot of the sequels. As well as that, for some reason, I feel like a sequel is more so something to do with fantasy books, whereas I don't read a lot of fantasy, so a lot of the books that are going to be sequels, I will have missed out on them. However, I have got some suggestions for you to check out. First one on the list is technically cheating because it is 2 books. I did absolutely love Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert, but there's no denying that the series got better as it went on. I am absolutely obsessed with Take a Hint Danny Brown and with Act Your Age Eve Brown. If you put me on the spot and ask me which one of them is my favourite, I think it would be Take a Hint Danny Brown, mainly because of Zaf. Zaf is the male love interest in Take a Hint Danny Brown, and he has basically got everything that I would look for in a man. He's a rugby player, so I know he's into sports, but he also reads romance audiobooks at work, which is something that I also do, and definitely something that we could bond over. However, if you were to ask which one of the 3 Brown sisters I most identify with, I am very much 95% Eve Brown. I am chaotic good. I feel like Eve and I had a huge connection as soon as I read the book. Like Chloe Brown, these are chock full of really fantastic representation. You've got Muslim representation, you've got body positivity, you have got fat female main characters. I absolutely adore these books. I implore you, go and check them out. Next up is a sequel that was 25 years in the waiting, but my god was the wait worth it. I completely devoured Again Rachel by Marion Keyes. I think this arrived on maybe like the 17th or 18th of February, and by dinner time the day after, I was completely finished with this book. I inhaled it. As you can imagine from the title, this does follow Rachel, who is the main character from Rachel's Holiday. She's one of the Walsh sisters from Marion's Walsh Sister series. Rachel, in Rachel's Holiday, was struggling with drug addiction, with drug abuse, with alcohol abuse. But in Rachel's Holiday, her life has taken a pretty much 180. And now, instead of being in the cloisters to seek help, she is in the cloisters giving help. She's one of the therapists that she would have come to for help all that time ago. This book is absolutely full of characters that you already know from having gone through the Walsh Sister series. But because we've had such a big jump in time, there is also, of course, a lot of new additions to the family, and I really loved how they all blended in with the family that we already have gotten to know and love, and they really stood out in their own place. Also, just in case Marion is watching, I'm fully ready for a Kate Walsh book now. I think it's Kate's time to shine. There are quite a lot of deeper themes in this book, which is something that is common to everything that Marion writes. There's a lot of things that you really would need to be prepared for if you're going into this book. We're talking about bereavement, pregnancy, loss, struggles with addiction and drug abuse do come up, and that is definitely something to keep an eye on and to be aware of if you are planning on picking up this book. But if you can deal with those issues, again, I implore you to pick this one up. Next is a sequel from way back when I was younger. I worshipped the ground that Meg Cabot walked on when I was a teenager, and not only did I read the Princess Diaries series, but I also got through the All-American Girl duology. This duology follows Samantha Madison, who at the start of the series is about 15, 16, and she accidentally thwarts an assassination attempt on the President of the United States. She's also in an art class with the President's son, and they start to get really close together and they start to form a friendship, and of course a relationship comes from there. In the second book, Ready or Not, a lot of the themes and a lot of the discussions in the book are about losing your virginity, the concept of virginity as a whole. Female masturbation does come up, which I thought was really intriguing for a book that was aimed at teenagers. And there is also a lot of discussion about the topic of your first time and when you know that you're ready and are you ever ready for it. And I really loved how that whole thing was dealt with throughout the book. Sam is one of the characters that if I could get an update on where she is in life, I would absolutely adore to get it. But for now, I'll just have to go back to the books again. Next up is The Bride Test by Helen Huang, and I really enjoyed this book. It is equally as steamy as The Kiss Quotient, so if you enjoyed that level of it, you're going to really enjoy this one here too. This book follows Esme, who is brought over from Vietnam to the USA as a kind of an arranged marriage for Kai. Kai is autistic. He isn't really comfortable with getting to know people. He's not very comfortable in social situations, but his mother really wants to marry him off and to give him a good life in that situation. So she thinks that this might be the best way to do that, and she offers Esme quite a lot of money and a brand new life and a brand new setup to come over and basically be Kai's wife. Esme herself is a single mother, and she sends a lot of money back to her daughter and to her own mother in Vietnam to kind of give them a better life that she was really hoping to give her daughter. The representation in this, like the Brown Sisters, is not my story to tell, so I can't comment on how accurately the Vietnamese representation is, the autistic representation is, but I really enjoyed the romance in this story. It's very, very slow burn, and I ate it up. Next up is Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. This is the second book of the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. I read this as an audiobook, and I don't know if that was the proper way I should have done it, because these books are so immersive. They don't just tell you the story in a straight narrative. There are also so many additional parts to the story, like police reports or text messages between the characters, or like newspaper clippings. It's really immersive, and that is something that I absolutely adore in thrillers, because it really gives you a point of feeling like you are there actually genuinely watching the story develop, finding out everything as the characters are finding it out, even perhaps that you might be just reading about it in the newspaper. It's something that I've absolutely loved in books, and I know that there is a third book in the series called As Good as Dead. I've heard some mixed reviews about it, but I am going to go in with a very open mind and just see how we get on. Next is Majesty by Catherine McGee, and this is the second book in the American Royal series. The main idea behind this series is what would happen if, instead of becoming president after the War of Independence in the US, George Washington became a king, and then all of his descendants also came onto the crown, rather than there being presidential elections. Throughout Majesty, we're seeing what happens during the reign of the first queen, regnant Beatrice, and how her life has changed. I will say that there was one thing that I didn't like about this book, in that all of the relationships that are set up at the end of American Royals are completely torn apart when you get into Majesty. And there was one specific relationship that I genuinely adored with all of my heart, and that was ripped from under my feet so much during Majesty. It did take me a little while to get on board with that again when I realised that this pairing was not going to come back to fruition. But once I got past that, it was such a great read. The final sequel that I have loved is The Intimacy Experiment by Rosie Danan. This is the second book to the Roommate series, and here you're following Naomi, who was a side character in the first book. I really enjoy those kind of series where you're not technically just following one character. You've got like a side character in the first book is the main character in the second book, and then maybe a side character in the second book might be in the third book. Those all set in the one universe type of books are the type of books that I absolutely love. So I really loved seeing that one. As well as this, I also learned quite a lot about Jewish culture, about Jewish traditions, about Jewish lifestyles that I hadn't known before reading this book, because Naomi and Ethan, the male main character in this book, are both Jewish. Ethan is actually a rabbi, so he is quite tied to his faith, whereas Naomi has probably become a little bit more lax as she grew up. As you would expect for a main character who is a former porn star, the steamy scenes in this book are absolutely amazing, and that was definitely a highlight for not just this book but the whole series so far for me. These are just some of the book sequels that I have absolutely adored. Are there any of those sequels that you have also absolutely loved, or do let us know what some of your favorites are in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, because I have new videos up every week. Now get on out of here.